One thing my friends and I always enjoyed doing was playing video games.
One of our favorite games to play was RBI Baseball.
The RBI Baseball came out on Nintendo, and of course, back in the 80s, you know, all of us guys who hung around together, we loved baseball. We played baseball, so I mean, naturally that's going to be a good game for us to get involved in.
It was awesome. Now, by today's standards, its graphics were very primitive, but its gameplay was so much fun.
The first game that actually would simulate a professional stadium, a professional team, and actually have players from that team.
Before then, it was just anonymous computer players. But RBI Baseball, they signed some kind of licensing deal with the Major League Baseball Players Association, and they were able to use names of the players, and it was awesome.
You had all the great players. I mean, there were players on every team. Canseco, McGuire, you know, you had the Cardinals, Ozzie Smith and Willie McGee.
Mark McGuire, Andre Dawson, George Brett. You know, just famous players that you've heard of from the past.
The players, they were matched up with their real live counterparts' abilities. For instance, Vince Coleman was blazing fast. Mark McGuire, if he got a hold of one, it was just gone. They matched up the computer players to their major league counterparts beautifully, and it was so much fun. We spent hours and hours playing that game, me and my friends.
We played two ways. We played the regular style of baseball, but then we also played this game called Home Run Derby.
Home Run Derby was played exactly like regular RBI baseball, with one major difference. You could not curve your pitches. They had to be straight.
But as far as the pitcher could only pitch the ball right down the middle.
A talented pitcher in RBI baseball could hold his opponent scoreless. The controls, you could control the ball after it left the pitcher's hand, and so you could curve it a great deal after it had, when it was halfway to the plate.
We would just throw straight fastballs, right down the middle, no trickery, just right down the gut. So we wanted to have these 35 to 30 games instead of 5 to 2. You know, just more fun that way, more runs scored, more base runners, and more home runs.
And that made the games much more high scoring and much more exciting, frankly. The pitchers' duels were gone. It was just offense, and we played a lot of home run derby.
You had your home runs, you know, coming left and right and scored a bunch of runs, and hey, you know, you're going to hit the ball every time, which that's what everybody enjoys doing anyway, is hitting the ball and then trying to get somebody out.
But the rule was very strict. You had to throw the ball straight. There was no curving allowed in home run derby.
We had an honor among each other where we would throw those fastballs down the middle, never any trickeration with the curveballs, because that'd mess up the integrity of our game. And you know, even though it was a game, we took that integrity seriously. And especially me. I was a hardcore competitor, and I didn't like being cheated.
Lance James is one of my best friends that I've ever had. We called him Big Larry. It's kind of one of our shticks among us guys back in the 80s. We would get each other's names just a little bit wrong. My name is Craig, but they called me Greg. Jared Reese became Jake. Lance James became Big Larry.
Lance James, a.k.a. Big Larry, whatever you want to call him, he is a good friend of mine. Me and him and Craig, you know, we all hung out together a lot. Lance was a great friend of mine, still is a great friend of mine, and we started hanging out together probably when we were sophomores, you know, and over the years we grew real close together. Me and him and Craig, we done everything together. Lance is a great guy.
He and I have been great friends ever since third grade. Have an awful lot in common. Sports, music, video games. We're just great friends. Always have been from the day that we met. and still are to this day.
Back then, I mean, Lance was huge. I mean, we were all scared to death of him. If he ever got mad, he'd probably kill us.
In high school, Lance was a great athlete. He was an all-state offensive lineman for a couple of very good Nettleton Raider football teams, the 87 and 88 Raiders.
And I mean to tell you, I consider Lance one of my best friends, and he's a great guy. He's a great guy.
Lance James is a man of great integrity, and when somebody does not show integrity, it makes Lance very mad.
Lance, Big Larry James, you know, he was a big burly guy. Thought his size he could intimidate everybody, and he was nothing more than a bully.
Jake Reese, Jared Reese, a.k.a. Jake Reese. Back in high school, I met Jared while I was living in the Viking Edition. Me and Jared played Little League Baseball together. We grew up together. He moved out of the Viking Edition a good while before I did. But Jake was a year younger than me and Lance and Craig. But, you know, he was hanging around with us, and, you know, Jake is a good guy.
Jake Reese, he's a nice kid. He was frustrating, though. He was a loose cannon.
Back then, he could flip a switch, you know, and sometimes he could go off a little bit.
We kind of had to keep an eye out for him because he was always trying to get in trouble.
But, you know, all in all, Jake was a good guy. He hung out with us a lot. You know, we all became real good friends over the year, and I really liked Jake.
He wanted to fit in with us because we were loved by everybody from the administration at school, the teachers, you know, and especially the girls, you know, I mean. So he wanted to hang out with us because, well, we were the cool kids, you know. And so we let him come along with us, and we let him come over and hang out at the house and stuff.
Jared Reese, Jake Reese, I don't know any nice way to say this. He's a weasel. Jake Reese is a weasel. He is a guy who would cheat his own dear sweet mother if it meant getting ahead. He's conniving, he's sneaky, he's a weasel. I love him. He's one of my best friends, but Jake Reese is a weasel.
You know, one day we were over at my buddy Brian Morgan's house. He lived over in the Viking Edition, Jonesboro, Nettleton District, and we spent a lot of time over there upstairs in his loft bedroom, and he had the, you know, booming bass system going on a stereo, listen to some Bobby Brown, you know, just chilling, playing some Nintendo.
Brian Morgan had it, he lived in a upstairs of part of his house, had the whole upstairs to himself, and we'd come over there after school and on the weekends or whatever, and a bunch of us would sit around and play RBI Baseball.
It got down toward the end of the day, you know, we were rolling it down where we was going to have to go home pretty soon, so one more game, okay?
But it was Larry and I against each other.
And they were under home run derby rules.
And of course, I'm going to be California Angels, and Jake Reese, he's the Cardinals.
You know, obviously the Cardinal fan that I am, I took the St. Louis Cardinals, and I believe he had the California Angels.
Well, I neglected to talk about soft spot I had for one of the players on the video game. His number 7 hitter in the lineup for the Angels, Dickie Schofield. You know, in real life, he is a gritty, gutty shortstop, not much God-given ability, but he got the job done.
He loved Dick Schofield, number 7 batter, but he loved him.
Good player. But I'll tell you what, whenever I was holding that controller in my hand and I had Dickie Schofield up at the plate, I could do magical things. You know, I bet he batted 900 for me. He probably hit 2 to 3 home runs a game. And, this guy, he wasn't a home run hitter. But with me and him working together, it was special. We had a bond. And, I think Jake was jealous of that. Because, he just didn't have a bond with any of his players. And it was just like, let's go out and play. It wasn't special with him. And I could feel the jealousy.
So we were playing home run derby, and we kind of like a Rocky fight. We were swapping blows left and right. He would be up and I would be up.
That game was rolling along. We were having a great time. Back and forth. He'd be up, I'd be up. Every inning, we were just on each other's heels.
He kept mouthing. He was a bully, and he would get up by 1 run and he would mouth a little bit. And then, the typical bully, I would come back and I'd score 3 or 4 on him and he would go to whining. So
came down to the bottom of the 9th. I happened to be batting in the bottom of the 9th. I don't remember the exact score.
We get to the bottom of the 9th inning, and I was up, and I think Larry had bases loaded and 2 outs.
I do remember that Jake's team was up by 2 runs on me.
And I'm not for certain that Larry was down by 3 runs. I do know he had 2 outs. I know he was down. He was losing. He's a loser, so he was losing.
Guess who comes up to bat? Schofield, of course.
Had probably his best hitter up at the plate, Nick Schofield.
He had a great game. I don't remember how many home runs or hits he had. He probably driven in 6 or 8 runs. He was on fire, as usual. And Jake knew it, He knew it.
So Larry's got his favorite batter that he counts on every game. Got him standing at the plate.
Really, you couldn't script it any better.
I had Schofield. I had 2 runners on base, down by 2 runs. I had it. I knew I had it won. Schofield's a hero. Always was.
First pitch, he gets a little greedy and pulls it down the left field line, foul ball.
Jake gets up there, throws me a fastball, boom, I nail it down the left field line, just foul. That's okay. That happens all the time. Get out in front of it, get a little bit anxious, that's cool.
The second one, I think he pretty much got a piece of it. Still, it was foul. And so I could tell he was on it.
0-2 count. You got to remember, we're not throwing balls. We're not throwing anything outside the strike zone, because that's how we got it set up. Straight fastballs all the way.
So I'm sitting there waiting, and all of a sudden, I think I remember looking over like this right here, kind of glancing this way, and I see, like a spark in Jake's eye or something, and I'm going, what's going on? He just looks different.
And I could sense something was off. It wasn't obvious, but there was a light that switched for Jake. He went from being an annoying little kid to a butthole.
Well, like I said before, Larry was a bully. He loved to bully somebody that was smaller than him, that wasn't, his size. And, like I said before, every bully, they have their day.
Normally during this situation, he would be really excitable and very, I hate to keep using this term, annoying, but he was unusually silent.
So my keen sense of ingenuity came about.
So his pitcher winds up, and I'm on it. I'm like, I see it. I'm about to deposit it into the left field bleachers.
Well, all of a sudden, I see the ball come out of the pitcher's glove. And I look over and I see Larry licking his lips, just like a batter would. He's fixing to jump all over this pitch. I mean, he's ready.
And I can tell he's just getting ready just to yank it.
And just as I hit that button to swing my bat,
I tapped the right arrow button on my controller. What that did was it threw that ball just a little bit outside.
the ball curves outside.
And, you know, Larry, being the dumb lug that he is, he swung.
Well, all of a sudden, I see the ball. It kind of goes, whoop, and Larry swung at it, and it was like, whiff.
And I swing and miss. Game's over. I lost. Schofield lost.
He swings, he misses, he strikes out, ball game, and yours truly wins the game.
Jake won the game. Turn the camera off. Turn the camera off.
Well, and then all of a sudden I see Jake take his controller. Jake sets it down and starts to do his victory dance. You know, like, yes, I won, I won.
But then he starts jumping up and down, celebrating like he just did something magnificent. Jumping up and down in my face, basically saying in your face, I just beat you.
The bully has been defeated. Goliath has been taken down. And I didn't gloat. No, I did. I can't lie. I mean, he got his just rewards. So, you know, I felt good about it.
And I'm going to tell you, it was like a cloud came over that room. And when it happened, it took me by storm.
And then all of a sudden, I see Larry, who had his head down like this, all of a sudden picks it up. And I've seen this look in Larry's eye before, and I knew Jake was fixing to die.
Yeah, he was pretty upset.
I thought Jake was going to die. I said, oh crap, you know, I brought Jake over here, and now Larry's going to kill him.
And Morgan's eyes were about the size of Coke bottles. And I didn't know what was going on.
Well, I snapped.
But I turned around and there's this big lug with his arms out ready to choke the life out of me.
And I see Lance get up. And I see Jake, he's doing his dance up there, you know, yelling and everything. And then I see Larry's hands come at his neck. And he lifts him up by his neck. And I go, oh, crap.
I'm not proud to say this, but I picked Jake up by the neck and threw him 12 feet across that room.
Jake flew in the air. Jake probably weighed about 122 soaking wet. Larry probably weighed about, I don't know, 235 and just stout as a beanpole. But Jake's body went flying through the air and boom, he landed up against the wall. And I thought he was dead.
And luckily, whenever I went over there and picked him up again and shoved him up against the other wall, the wall was stable enough to break his fall.
And then I think a few choice words were said, and I can't remember the words, and I'm not going to say them probably on television.
I looked into Jake's eyes after I threw him against the wall for the second time, and I was like, is this still funny? And he was still giggling. I'm like, this kid is insane. I mean, how is he going to public school? Why is he not in some correctional facility for the mentally insane?
Well, then I look up, and then Larry goes over to him again. And Jake's still laughing. And I went, oh, golly.
I mean, I felt sorry for him. I didn't feel too sorry for him because I kicked his for a couple more minutes.
Yeah, when he got him, he had him, and I mean, he never hit him in the face. Never hit him in the face, but he did elbow him, and I think he gut punched him a few times.
I was sure not to punch him in the face. Let's get that straight. I didn't throw any punches. I didn't want his mom to be able to see what happened. You know, I kept it from the neck down. You know. He got a few elbows to the gut. He got a few forearms, you know. He got a few forearms to the upper chest here. And after 2 or 3 minutes of that, his laughter subsided.
We wrestled around there, and he screamed a few explicitives at me and threatened, you know, my life a few times.
All of a sudden, I hear a voice come from downstairs that says, "Brian!" Everything got quiet. And I said, "Yeah." And it was my dad. He said, "What are y'all doing?" I said, "We're just playing baseball." He goes, "Okay." He said, "I thought I heard something up there." And I said, "No, you didn't hear anything." Well, then it had to stop. You know, I think my dad saved Jake's life. I firmly believe that he saved Jake's life that day.
I remember his voice, but I also remember a point of getting away from Larry and running down the stairs. And I think he hit every wall on the way down and knocked pictures off, but Tommy was at the foot of the stairs, and I think it kind of scared him and put him in his tracks.
Jake's life was saved that day, I think, by my dad.
Over a baseball game.
You don't come between a man and his Schofield.
I remember a wise man once said, "Win if you can, lose if you must, but by all means cheat." And hey, I did what I had to do, and it put the big lug in his place.
Whenever there's a special bond like that, you don't do it.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Even if you think it's funny, even if it's a joke, you don't. Especially if that man's twice your size and 10 times your athletic ability. You just don't do it.
To this day, I mean, he's got a burr in his saddle over it.
Even to this day, years later, I'm still obviously affected by this.
Larry, it's been many years, and been a lot of water under the bridge.
Jake Reese, you know what, man? I've had a lot of sleepless nights over the years. A lot of them I've been just laying there replaying the events in my mind. But Jake, I want to tell you something. You grew up with us. We let you hang out with us. We brought you into our group. We made you one of us. And we loved you. I love you. I still do, Jake. Even after your horrible betrayal. But I've made it. I have made it. I've made something of myself. I'm an upstanding individual in my community. I'm there to help people. I'm friends with people. That's what I do. I'm a friend. I've learned that throughout my life. And you, Jake, you were one of the first lessons that taught me how to be a friend. When you betrayed me that day at Morgan's house, when we were playing RBI Baseball, you know what I'm talking about. You taught me a lesson. If a friend betrays you, you give him his proper punishment. You kick his like a little baby that he is. You kick it some more, and then you pick him up and dust him off and say, "You're forgiven, brother." That's what I'll say to you right now. Jake Reese, you're forgiven.
At the end of the day, I've just got one thing, you know. Like I said, water's been under the bridge. Years have gone by, but I do have to tell you one thing. You're still a bully and you lost.
But I have not forgotten, obviously, the incident. But for Jake, I consider him my friend once again. And if he ever wants to play some RBI baseball, I'll be down for a rematch.